Welcome to this episode of the Aquarist Edge, a podcast for home aquarists just like you. Learn more about how to keep a thriving aquarium and discover ideas and tips to give your aquarium the edge. And now, over to our host, Arthur Preston.
When people ask me what my favorite fish is, I straight away turn to the Corydoras. These little catfish are absolutely adorable. They are up and down in the tank. They're always active. They're scurrying around the bottom. They're exploring. I actually call them the Labradors of my aquariums. I think they're absolutely amazing. And in this episode, I'm going to share with you information about Cories, how to keep them happy and healthy, and for those who want to find out how to set them up for breeding. So let's get into it. So let's talk about Cories in general. The genus Corydoras includes 160 plus recognized species, and you find them in slow-moving rivers and streams in South America. And because of this diversity, there's a Corydora for almost every type of freshwater tank setup. They're peaceful fish, they're social, and they thrive in groups, which makes them especially entertaining to watch as they forage along the bottom of your tank. So here are some of the popular species that you might see in the hobby, and what makes them unique. One of the most popular you'll find is the bronze Cory, or Corydoras Aeneas. You'll also find this in the albino variety. Those are the ones you'll commonly find in your local fish shop. These are, they're probably the most widely kept species, and they're known for their shimmering, almost metallic scales, and with the right light, they can appear bronze, green, or gold. The bronze Cories grow slightly larger than the other types, reaching about 7 centimeters, and adapt well to a range of water conditions. They're very much a beginner-friendly fish. But one of the other popular ones, because they're just hardy, is the pepper Corydoras. Their scientific name is Corydoras palliatus. They're really hardy and, again, ideal for beginners. They have a speckled or a peppered appearance, and they sometimes have a bit of a greenish-blue hue. They grow up to about 6 centimeters, and they prefer cooler temperatures, around 22 degrees Celsius. Another favorite of mine are the Panda Cories, and the scientific name, very easy to remember, Corydoras Panda. They're absolutely unmistakable. They've got a distinct black eye patch around the eye, the dorsal fin, and near the tail. They're a bit smaller. They reach about 5 centimeters and are known for being very active and social. They prefer water temperatures at about 24 degrees and a pH of about 6.5 to 7.5. Another favorite is the Sterbai Corydoras. And again, easy to remember a scientific name, Corydoras sterbai. And these are often kept in warmer tanks because they can thrive in temperatures up to 28 degrees Celsius, which makes them really compatible with tropical community tanks where the temperature needs to be a bit higher. They have a distinctive pattern of white or orange dots on the dark body and grow up to about 6 centimeters. They're very popular in community setups and they look great in a group swimming around the tank. A rather unique choice of Corydora for a smaller tank, perhaps a nano tank setup, is the pygmy Corydoras. Again, easy to remember scientific name, Corydoras pygmaeus. They only grow to about 3 centimeters. They're very active. They can often be found darting up into the mid-levels of the tank. And what's interesting about these guys is that most of the Corydoras, if not all the other species, will forage around the bottom almost all day. Whereas with the pygmy Cories, it's very common to find them swimming mid-level in your tank. They prefer soft acidic water and a temperature of around 23 degrees. There are, of course, many other species available, but they all share common traits, like, for example, being in groups. They have peaceful temperaments, and they love foraging at the bottom of the tank. When you set up your tank for Corydoras, or when you place your Corydoras in your aquarium, you'll probably notice them doing something quite interesting. They will occasionally dart up to the water surface and then swim right back down. And if you're not aware of this, it might be alarming. You might think that they are not breathing properly, but don't worry, it's entirely normal. These fish belong to a group of fish known as facultative air breathers. Now, this means they have the unique ability to take in oxygen from the air when they need it. That's because the intestinal structure has been modified to allow absorption of oxygen from solid air. And this adaptation comes about from their natural habitat, where oxygen levels in the water can be quite low, especially in stagnant or slow-moving water. Now, even in the home aquarium with good filtration and aeration, Cories will still occasionally dart to the surface for a quick breath. This behavior isn't a sign of distress or poor water quality, but it's a natural behavior. It's just part of who they are as fish. Just make sure that if you've got a particularly active group of Cories that you keep a cover on your tank, and they can be quite speedy. And when they dart up, and they have been known to jump out of tanks before. I've never had that happen, but it can. Also, providing a well-oxygenated environment with gentle water flow can help them feel comfortable while encouraging their natural instinct. Now, it's good to remember that Cories are schooling fish, so it's important to keep at least 6 of them together. A 60-litre tank is a minimum for a small group, but a 100-litre tank is recommended if you're keeping a larger group or multiple species of Cories together. A soft substrate is vital because Cories have delicate barbels around their mouths. Sand is great. It allows the Cories to dig and search for food naturally. It's best to avoid rough gravel, as it's said this can damage their barbels, which are essential for sensing their environment and finding food. Now, you might find contrasting information to this online. It has sparked debate on forums before, where some people think or will tell us that it doesn't really matter, the Cories will be just fine, their barbels aren't damaged from the rough substrate, while others will vehemently tell you no, they must have a soft sandy bottom to forage in. Well, I've had Cories in both environments, and they've lived healthily. However, if I look at their natural environment, it would seem that a softer substrate is probably best for them. So when I have Cories in my tanks, I do try and keep a very soft, gentle substrate. And it's true, they do enjoy foraging in that and playing. I guess it looks like they're playing in the sand at times. Adding decor like smooth stones, driftwood and plants creates an environment that mimics their natural habitat and also gives them hiding spots. Cories love to find safety under a rock or in a little cave. This is where they seem to be the happiest. So let's have a look at the parameters of the water for Cories. It's a quick rundown. We've got temperatures of between 22 to 26 degrees. This can vary by species, as mentioned earlier. For most species, a pH of 6.5 to 7.5 is good, and water hardness, normally soft to moderate. Weekly water changes of about 25% are recommended to maintain the water quality, as Cories are sensitive to ammonia and spikes in the nitrite levels. Its low to moderate flow filter is best, and because Corydoras are used to calm waters, they also appreciate well oxygenated water, so adding an air stone or a sponge filter can really help. Now, what kind of fish will live with Cories? Well, Cories are excellent community fish. They get along well with other peaceful species, such as tetras, rasboras and guppies. Avoid the aggressive or territorial species like cichlids, as they may harass your Cories or outcompete them for food. Rather stick to non-aggressive, similar-sized fish, and your Cories will feel right at home. If you're mixing multiple Corydora species, they'll often school together, though they may show a preference for their own kind. This mixed grouping is not only visually appealing, but also encourages their natural social behaviour. In terms of feeding the Cories are omnivores, so a balanced diet is important. You are able to give them high-quality sinking pellets or tablets designed for bottom dwellers. Those are great for staple food. However, to keep things interesting, give them live or frozen foods such as bloodworms or daphnia and brine shrimp, maybe once or twice a week. These foods not only provide variety, but also mimic the hunting behaviours they engage in the wild. There's one thing you need to remember though. In a community tank, it's easy for Cories to miss out on food, especially if there are fast eaters around. So you can target feed them, just make sure that the pellets and the food you're giving them is landing near them, and that your middle and top feeders are not managing to get all their food before the Cories can get to it. Now, if you want to breed Cories, this is not particularly difficult. They're quite easy to breed. You can identify male and female by noticing that the females are generally larger and more rounded, especially when they're carrying eggs, and the males are slimmer and have a slightly more pointed shape. A separate breeding tank of around 30 litres is ideal to give the eggs a safe environment. That is because it is possible Cories do actually eat their own eggs from time to time. Set up the tank with smooth rocks, broadleaf plants, and a sponge filter. And one popular method to trigger the breeding is to simulate a rainy season by doing about a 50% water change with slightly cooler water, and this can signal the start of breeding conditions to your Cories. And once the eggs are laid, you'll see them attached to smooth surfaces or the glass of the tank. Remove the adults to prevent them from eating the eggs, and eggs can hatch within 3 to 5 days, and the fry can be fed with Soria or specially designed fry food until they're large enough to eat crushed pellets or live food. That all said and done, I've had Cories breed in community tanks unexpectedly. The conditions were right, there was enough hiding space, the Cories were well fed, they didn't want to eat their own eggs, and I've had some success actually with just allowing the natural breeding to happen within a tank. However, if you're trying to breed them for profit, or if you're trying to deliberately breed Cories, well then yes, I suggest you do have a separate breeding tank. That will certainly enhance the survival rate of your fry and make sure that the eggs are not eaten by the parents. What about healthcare for Cories? While Cories are hardy, they're also prone to health issues if the tank isn't properly maintained. So make sure that you're doing your weekly water changes, keep your water quality good, keep an eye on the ammonia, the nitrites and the nitrate levels, quarantine any new tank mates. If you do your basics right, there's no reason why your Cories cannot have a very healthy and fulfilling and enjoyable life in your community tank. I encourage you to go and explore the different species that are available. Put some Cories in your tank, enjoy them. They are really fabulous fish.
That's it for this episode of the Aquarist Edge. Please consider subscribing to this podcast so that you don't miss further episodes. We would love it if you would also rate and review the podcast, as this helps make it visible to others. Until next time, keep learning and discovering, and keep finding your Aquarist Edge in this captivating and fascinating hobby.